What's going on, everybody? Season 4, Episode 1. Week 1 has wrapped up in the NFL. And so far, the Giants and the Dodgers have clinched a playoff berth and are locked in for October baseball. So, based on watching Week 1 and catching the games that I was able to catch, the Jets are better, but not doing anything significant for people to worry about them. So far, the most producing offense was the Niners. They put the most points, at least. Their defense did take some huge hits. As a Niner fan, they lost Mostert for the year, and they lost Jason Verrett for the year already. As a fan, it was just expected. Those two weren't good. It was expected, and we were hoping that it wasn't going to happen just for depth purposes. But I feel as if this year they were prepared to make the necessary moves. And they were watching carefully, obviously. It seems like Mostert wasn't fully 100%. It doesn't seem like, I don't know, Verrett. It's just this guy's taken on injuries his whole career, so we weren't expecting him for longevity reasons, more of just utilizing his talent. I know it sucks to say that about somebody, but it was expected. They were hoping it wasn't going to happen because they are difference makers, but it is what it is. It's part of the game, and hopefully they can be resilient and overcome that. Monday Night Football was wild. The Raiders looked like they were about to lose, and then this overtime was wild. It was entertaining. I would say one of the most entertaining opening weeks to the NFL in a very long time. There were some teams that were some shocks to some people. The Titans didn't look good at all. But it is week 1. Aaron Rodgers had the worst performance of his career. Even his rookie games were better than what he played. And I had him on my fantasy team. And let me tell you, I'm not letting him start until he proves that he can play better than that. I do have Rodgers and Baker Mayfield in my fantasy team, so thankfully I had options. But then I lost all kinds of players to injuries in just week 1. In week 1, I had to scavenge for 4 players. Surprisingly, Christian Kirk from the Arizona Cardinals was available, and so I was able to replace one of my injured receivers, which was Jerry Jeudy. And, yeah, he's out for at least 8 weeks with a high ankle sprain. And we all know with high ankle sprains, they usually are never 100% for the rest of the season. So there's a possibility he doesn't even come back. So I went ahead and had to drop him because he was going to be gone for too long. If it was just like 3-4 weeks, oh, sure. I'd keep him on a little IR and bring him back in. But he's going to be gone for too long. With fantasy, you kind of have to jump on things quickly or else you're just going to fall off. And so I still got the W. The person I played, their team was just absolute terribly set up, which is good for me. There is some questionable players in fantasy at the moment. I had some guys didn't perform, which were supposed to perform. Ronald Jones, I didn't have him starting because they were saying he wasn't going to be the starting running back anymore. But I do have him on my fantasy team because when he does play, he puts up numbers. But that was not the case when he played the Dallas Cowboys. He had some fumbles and all that. So I went ahead and scavenged up. I got Cordell Patterson now. I had to drop Raheem Mostert from my starting lineup. So I picked up Cordell Patterson. And yeah, there's quite a few guys I picked up. I can't list all their names right off the top of my head at the moment. Let me go ahead and pull it up actually for you guys. But my fantasy lineup is looking pretty nice now, surprisingly. And my starting roster for the time being until they announce any COVID-19 mishaps and shit like that. I got Russell Wilson, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Deebo Samuel, Christian Kirk, Hawkinson as the tight end, Marquise Brown as the flex, Rams defense, and Younghoe Koo as the kicker, which kickers you can pick up on a weekly basis if there's a bye week. So, and then my bench has got Rodgers, Mayfield, Jones, Beasley, White, Garrett Cook from the Chargers, the tight end, and Cordell Patterson, labeled as a running back, which they have been using him. He's always been a utility player, so he's just one of those players that kind of just hits all the special teams, returner, kickoff, kick return, punt return. They do have some jet plays that they run with him. They have screens that they use for him, specifically him. He's a awesome player to have, but he usually puts up only crazy numbers if he has a lot of returns and shit like that. He's not one of those guys to constantly get the ball handed off to him. He's not he's not a starting running back for a team most of the time. So with that being said, fantasy was awful. Almost lost week 1, which would have been a terrible start. Now I have a possibly really good starting lineup, depending if they rotate, if Josh Jacobs is used a lot more in week 2. Did just come off an overtime game. He scored 2 touchdowns, didn't really rush for a whole lot of yards, which is kind of questionable because he did look shaken up. I was watching that game most of the night. And yeah, it's just been a wild ride with that. I feel as if Rodgers will be released from the Packers very soon if he doesn't start performing well. But he went into his press conference acting like, hey, I just had a bad game. I would say it was more than just a bad game. He straight up looked like he couldn't play anymore. He just looked awful. And Jameis Winston, he had kind of a weird stat line, 148 yards passing, but had 5 passing touchdowns. It was the weirdest stat. He barely throwing the ball, but he threw for 5 touchdowns. It's really weird. So Saints look really good. We're gonna pull up some teams real quick. Let me pull up NFL. Yeah, I'm just kind of doing what I did last time, just kind of going on the fly with all this. And so I'm going to give y'all a week 2 prediction. So we got Giants, Washington. I think Washington's going to win that game for obvious reasons. They have a really good defense. And Giants aren't looking too hot. Bengals, Bears, I actually think the Bengals are going to come out on top. Joe Burrow's healthy. Mixon's healthy. The run game's looking good. The receiving game's looking good. They are a little shaky just because they're a young bunch. But I think the Bengals will be in the mix at the end. So I say the score for that game, Bears defense was terrible last week, so I would say probably 28-14. Texans, Browns, I think that one's obvious. Browns are going to win that by at least 2 scores. I would say 30-17. Rams, Colts. Rams are going to come out on top. Matthew Stafford looks unstoppable this year. He looked great in his debut with the Rams. That game will be 21-14. Bills, Dolphins. Bills looked a little shaky. Week 1 rust, but I think they're going to come out on top on this next game. 24-17. Patriots, Jets. I think Patriots are going to win 14-3. just because the Jets' offense doesn't really look like they're producing a whole lot. And they just lost to the Panthers, which is not a team you should be losing to. With that being said, 14-3 Patriots. Patriots is looking a little rough on offense, but Mac Jones looks like he's getting the job done. They are coming off of the loss as well, but 49ers, Eagles. This will probably be a pretty close game. I say 21-17. Hopefully the Niners win. But Eagles are looking pretty good. Jalen Hurts came out, proved a point last week. He did play the Falcons. Falcons are pretty terrible. But Niners have a high-powered offense. They could put up a lot of points. It'll probably, I wouldn't say be a shootout. Hopefully Niners defense can bounce back off, even though they had some injuries. They did sign a lot of corners. I think they signed a couple corners just right after the game, after losing Brett, and then Mosley is not 100%. So Niners do have a chance to get a 2-0 start against the Eagles. Eagles are looking a lot better than last year, so we'll see how that game goes. Raiders, Steelers. Raiders look like they are doing very well based off that Monday Night Football performance. We'll have to see if they'll be 100%. They kind of have a short week coming their way, slightly, not just a day shorter than everyone else's, but on one day of rest. Most guys, they take Monday, Tuesday off, but I think Steelers, for obvious reasons, are going to come out on top. They are a much better defense than the Ravens, and the Ravens have a very good defense as well. Derek Carr looks really good this year. He looks really good. Based on how he was throwing the ball around in week 1, I say this game will be close. I think it's going to come down to who gets the ball last, and it's going to come down to a field goal. I say 24-21 Steelers. Saints, Panthers. I think the Saints are going to just be all over the Panthers. That game, I'm going to say 30-14. And that's because the Saints, they look real nice this year. Their defense is there. Their offense is going off the hook right now. Saints are looking pretty good. Broncos, Jaguars. I would say Broncos are going to come out on top. Trevor Lawrence looked a little shaky in week 1. Doesn't look too bad for a rookie, though. He looks like he's going to develop and be something good. But Broncos, Teddy Bridgewater is doing a lot more than what people were expecting. Broncos are looking a lot better than what was expected as well. And I think the Broncos are going to come out on top of that game, probably by like a touchdown. So I would say touchdown, maybe more, 10-point lead, something like that. 21-10 is what I'll say for that game. Vikings, Cardinals. Cardinals look elite this year. They were getting a lot of hate. That offense and that defense, Chandler Jones was all over the quarterback last week. And Cardinals says right here, 4-point spread. I think it's going to be bigger than that. Yeah, that's going to be a 28-7 game. Like, Cardinals look really good. Their offense looks super nice. Pending injuries, obviously, but Kyler Murray looked super good in that game. D-Hop looked good. Chandler Jones, their defense looked amazing. Cardinals are going to be a hard team to beat this year, but we shall see. But, yeah, I think that game's going to be 28-7. Vikings aren't all that. Falcons, Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers are just going to straight up demolish the Falcons. They should still play at 100% and, put the pedal to the metal. So, Buccaneers, that one's going to be possibly 38-3. And then Cowboys, Chargers. Cowboys look good. Dak looks good. Was a little skeptical about Dak. I think a lot of people were. A lot of people didn't pick him up. They may have picked him up later on in fantasy and stuff like that. But I think Cowboys are going to come out on top. They have the better offense, the better defense. The Cowboys are a pretty good team. But Cowboys tend to make a lot of mistakes, mental mistakes, to where they can win a game and they give the opposing team with the best quarterback in the league, over a minute left instead of eating more clock. If they do stuff like that again, they possibly will lose. Chargers are a pretty good team as well. They have a good offense. I say this game will be 28-21, Cowboys. Titans Seahawks. Titans looked really bad last week. Derrick Henry wasn't really himself. But the Titans could make a bounce back week 2. Seahawks, I think, are going to come out on top. Russell Wilson is just that guy again this year. He's going to be in the MVP talks again, I believe. So with that being said, well, I'm going to give them a 28-17 Seahawks. Chiefs-Ravens game, that matchup is always good. Two really good athletic quarterbacks going at it toe-to-toe. That game, Ravens played good with their mistakes. If they can eliminate the mistakes and hopefully, their run game that got demolished so far before the season started, and they lost Marcus Peters. So Ravens don't really have the edge on this. Chiefs are a very hard team to beat. They're probably going to come out on top out of the AFC once again, even though the Browns did give them quite a challenge. The Browns are probably going to be in the talk again for the AFC Championship game when it comes down to it. With this being said, though, it's an AFC head top tier game. Chiefs come out on top 24-17. That is my prediction. And then for Monday Night Football, we got the Lions and the Packers. And I think the Packers are going to win, even with the bad week 1 that they had. But so far, so good for them. And Packers, not so far so good for them. Packers still look good. They still have Rodgers. They still got their weapons. Their defense is mediocre. Lions look fucking terrible. Even though the Niner game, the score didn't really represent. That was Niners making mistakes at the end and almost letting them come back. But yeah, if anyone was watching the Niner game, they straight demolished the Lions in the first half. Like 31 points were put up in the first half, and the game ended with 41, I think. So, yeah, they put up 10 more points in the second half. That's still pretty embarrassing that they weren't able to hold them to at least a field goal or one score in the second half. Usually teams, make their necessary corrections. So to put up double digits in both halves, I think the Packers, if Rodgers comes back himself and plays and has an excellent game, there's a chance this game will be a blowout as well. So, but to keep it reasonable, 21-7 Packers. And so that is my week 2 prediction. Obviously, the two best divisions right now is AFC West and the NFC West, but things could change as the season goes on. But with that being said, that is all I have to say about the NFL. There wasn't any significant injuries that I really heard about. So we're going to pull up the MLB's playoff bracket. Give me one moment. Let's see if I could find one. Do they have one? I seen a graphic earlier. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to find something. Giants were the first team to clinch, by the way, if no one knew that, and the Dodgers were the second team to clinch. Yeah, they made the announcement yesterday. The Dodgers clinched. 2 teams clinched so far. Those two All right. MLB playoff picture. Okay. So we're looking at, is this recent? I believe it is. So playoff picture so far. So Giants are sitting at number 1. Dodgers and Cardinals are set up for the wild card game, and then you have the Brewers and Braves set for the NLDS, and then the American League. Tampa Bay is number 1. Houston's number 2, set up to play the White Sox in the divisional, the ALDS, and then the wild card right now is a 3-way tie with Toronto, New York, and Boston. New York Yankees, by the way. Obviously, that'll be the 4 and 5 seed, and then that is if the postseason started today. I don't know how they would determine the wild card game for the American League. That is interesting that they have such a huge tiebreaker going on right there. So obviously, Giants best record in baseball, got 94 wins right now. I think the Dodgers are sitting at 92 or 93, somewhere around there. Both broke 90 wins. Obviously, they're in the playoffs. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Season's got a couple more weeks left in it, and these last 2 weeks are very important for a few teams. And let's see. So you got the closest competitors are the Reds, Padres, and Phillies, but have all been 3 and 7 in their last 10 games. So and then the Red Sox, I think, are going to be the front runners for the wild card slot. If wild card game, if the season ended today, Yankees, Blue Jays, Red Sox, 8. So it says Yankees, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Yankees, Blue Jays, what? I don't know. They got too much going on right there. Cardinals, Dodgers would be the set wild card game for the National League. Division Series winner of wild card will play at the Rays for the American League, and then White Sox at Astros. So the National League Division Series wildcard game winner will play the Giants, and then the Braves at Brewers. The 2 teams that have clinched are only the Giants and the Dodgers. The next closest team to clinch is the Brewers, and the Rays could be first in line for a playoff berth in the American League, and then they need, so Rays need 6, White Sox need 7, and yeah. So, these next 2 weeks are going to be pretty rough for a few teams. They could have a heartbreak at the very end of their season. So, with that being said, that pretty much wraps up this episode. This is the brand new season. I'm doing that because the football season has started. Season 4, episode 1. I'm going to try to push out an episode every week now to keep up with the NFL, obviously, because it's up and rolling. And there's going to be a lot of things going on now. Now there's a lot of games to talk about, a lot of people to talk about, players. And then you got the MLB postseason coming up, baby. All right, thank you for listening. Go ahead, you know what to do. Subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Subscribe to the YouTube. Let's Argue. The title will be Let's Argue Season 4, Episode 1. And the channel's name is Let's Argue. And then obviously I have a Twitter handle, Let's Argue 49, and same for Instagram as well. I will be sharing this episode on all platforms that it is available on pretty much all listening platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else that you get your podcasts. I have 5 listening platforms and that it gets distributed out to. So there's really no reason not to. It shows up on a lot of apps and shows up on in a lot of locations. It's not hard to find. I do appreciate the people that are listening. I appreciate that. I do this out of just the hobby of I enjoy talking about sports, and that's just who I am. And I hope you enjoy my perspective on a lot of things and my predictions and opinions and all that great stuff. And with that being said, that is all I have to say. Have a good one, everybody.